This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about Nintendo getting destroyed in the Palworld lawsuits, the end of Xbox as we know it, Nintendo charging $80 for yet another game, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 141. I am your host, the man whose belly jiggle physics are being mocapped for the Cube in God of War Laufey, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who, like Ekbach, is dead again, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
The week has been, it's had its pros and cons. So I guess kind of a pro turning into a con is, I was working on the music project that I've been mentioning before, and I'm making good progress with that. The con is, it seems like yet another MacBook is failing me. Like right in the middle of working on the project, there was some weird artifacting going on the screen, and then I said, okay, it might just be that the MacBook is overheating, because it was a warm day and I don't really have any air conditioning like that, so it's like the temperature is pretty much going to be more or less the same as it is outside. More or less. So I said I will let it cool off for a while and come back later on and see what happens. So I went and opened it back up, turned it back on, and it was worse than it was before. And essentially the entire image was distorted. And I said, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Because it hasn't even been 2 weeks that I've owned this thing. And it's essentially going through the same thing. So I texted my friend and said, hey, I'm so sorry to have to say this, but you will not believe what's happened again. She understood, and so she said that's fine, and not to worry too much about it. So I'm like, I'll try to see maybe if there's something I can do. I'll also see maybe if I really hated doing it the first time around, but if I try switching out the thermal paste for it, if that might help anything or not. But if it's really just a matter of like the GPU dying or something like that, that's not something I can really, of course, fix. So I'll see what happens. But it's just, and I'm just like, this is the third MacBook I've owned, and it's already failing me. It's like, I feel like I don't hate Apple enough at this point.
Yeah.
But the better news though is that I've got my main PC working again.
Okay.
It was a bit of a hassle because I got everything hooked up and everything was running properly. But then for some reason, some stuff wasn't working, and I was wondering, is it the drive? Is it my SSD? I tried using an alternate SSD that seemed to be fine at first until then it started freezing up. I said, all right, I don't want to, or rather, I was going to possibly do the same way. I said, I'll just reinstall my operating system and, take it from there. And I tried it, and for some reason, it froze up, and I thought, all right, is there something wrong with this drive in particular? Also, I know that I've had a few issues with flash drives, or more recently with flash drives, and particularly using them in like USB 3.0 and stuff like that, where they start having problems. So I said, I actually have one USB 2.0 slot. I will stick that in there, and for good measure, I have a spare SSD. I will use that as my main drive. So I did that. I installed everything, and so everything's working right now. There are some things that I'll have to sort of reconfigure and reset and stuff like that for some games here and there. But for the most part, everything is running as it should. I feel at that point, though, I said it's taken me a while just to get to this point. if I do any sort of testing like I wanted to do, I will make a dedicated standalone PC. Maybe not just a full PC, but just like take parts and build something that works. In fact, I can still just use the old motherboard and CPU and just call it a day with that.
Mm-hmm.
And just do that instead. So that way I don't have to worry about going through this sort of ordeal again. But at least that's going around. That went well. So that's great. I can play games that I want to again, or play games at a better, better frame rates and resolution and graphics, which I'll sort of talk about later on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's good to be back in that sense. And then I guess just one other small detail. My sister needed me to watch my niece and nephew, so I did that yesterday. I was working at the time, and so they were like waiting for me to finish what I was doing, and it took me a bit longer than I had expected, just because we were really slammed. But afterwards, I was playing with them and whatnot, and they enjoyed their time here, so it was good. Good to see them again. But yeah, that is everything that has happened.
So, were you able to figure out anything with those other cards that you wanted to test out?
Those I did not. Part of it was just because I was still just a bit drained from just trying to get the PC to working just in general, and then also after trying to just, I guess, partially being just drained from having to deal with the MacBook issue and trying to figure out if I want to do anything with that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking to myself, I will take care of testing stuff later on. I just want to get to a state where at least all of my stuff works for right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll come back to that later on. Like I said, I can just take my old motherboard CPU and I'll do all the testing I need on that piece of hardware, and because that essentially would have been just this old piece I would have been using anyway, more or less. So it's not that big of a deal.
All right. Well, hopefully you can get things sorted out with the MacBooks and everything else. I don't know what to suggest other than, using PCs, but obviously that's not going to help with like your sound library and all that. So I can see why there's all that. Well, on my end, really the only thing that's of note, so Saturday late night, I think it was like around 11 o'clock, we got severe weather, and it was like a really bad, really strong winds, like 80 miles an hour. And so we had to go into our tornado shelter and everything, and I don't think any tornadoes touched down, or there might have been like an F1 somewhere, but it wasn't anywhere near us. But we still had to spend a decent, like probably about 45 minutes or something in the safe room. But the thing that was most notable about that was that because of how strong the winds were, our big trampoline in the backyard blew away.
Oh my God.
I mean, not completely away. It just went into the neighbor's yard behind us. But that thing is huge. I mean, like, it's a big trampoline. And it blew over the fence and ended up upside down in their yard. So yeah, I'm guessing it's probably just basically that there was enough, the wind could produce enough lift to get it out. I mean, to pick it up and then deposit it in the other yard. But yeah, so that was an interesting thing to have that happen. We didn't know that it happened until the morning, and my wife looked out the window and saw that the trampoline wasn't there. And then we asked around, and then found out that it was directly behind us, and then realized, oh yeah, I could see it. But yeah, so then my brother-in-law and his one of his boys came over and helped move it back. So basically what we did is we just tipped it on its side and then flipped it back over the fence so that it was, basically just went down flat, because the poles were kind of bent anyway. And I have some spare poles. I just haven't gotten around to switching them around yet. But and got the few springs reattached that came off, and yeah, so that was interesting. And really, apart from that, I can't think of anything else that's happened. Just kind of pretty standard stuff. I didn't get anything done with my video over the weekend, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen this weekend or not. It kind of depends on what else is playing, because we ended up just... I can't even remember what we did on Saturday, but we did a couple of things, and so, yeah, anyway.
But no other type of damage apart from just
No.
your...
No damage
Okay,
at all.
that's good. Great. That's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, what have you been playing this week?
So I've been playing some Core Keeper, and I've been playing that by myself, and that was primarily just because I wanted to deposit some things that I had on my character, since the character profiles you have can transfer between multiple files. So if you're playing on your save data, if you're playing with a friend, you can use that same character. I want to just deposit some items I had in my inventory in my main game, which I didn't realize I barely did anything in that game. So I also just did some exploration and tried to expand to roughly where I started with my friends when we played. Additionally, I was also just trying to work on different things to try to understand different mechanics for stuff that I don't necessarily do, because that's not when we play the games together, games like this, everyone sort of has their own role, and I'm more so just like the exploration guy and the combat guy. So stuff that's normally done back at our main base, like the farming, and also just trying to craft some stuff and get some new gear, and also make sure that we have enough items, potions, stuff like that. I never really handled that, so I was also trying to just make sure I understood how that mechanic works. So I was just trying to test that stuff out on my own, which isn't really all that complicated, but it was just good to know for myself. And then just trying to go around the map. I didn't, or at least I've been trying to find a few special waypoints, but unfortunately it seems like either I'm missing them or I'm not going far enough, because a couple places where I thought there would be one, I missed them, and or I just don't seem to know where they are. So that's been of a pickle, because I only have one waypoint unlocked right now, and in order to, go back and forth, I have to either go back to that particular waypoint, which essentially is kind of useless because it's not that far from the main base anyway, and you could just walk that distance. Anyway, so it's just trying to find the next suitable waypoint, so that way I can have a better place to teleport to and from my base. But yeah, it's not too much to say about that apart from just trying to do those things. Next, I played some Valor Mortis, and man, it certainly is a night and day difference playing on a dedicated PC than a Steam Deck. And I mean, it definitely plays a whole lot better and feels a whole lot better playing it, at the higher frame rate. And I think I averaged roughly around 80 frames per second. I mean, sometimes it was higher, but at like the 90s. Sometimes it was a bit lower, around the mid to low 70s, but it was mostly around 80, something like that. Playing it at 1440p with, I think, at medium presets, disable motion blur and stuff like that. I'm hoping that they have more graphic settings in the main game, just because it seemed a bit lacking from what I could tell in the settings, unless I missed something. But it's definitely a good. I tried looking for the mini bosses that you mentioned before. I know you said one of them wasn't exactly a mini boss per se, but more like a mini boss. So I was trying to find that one. I was also trying to find the other mini boss that you mentioned. I don't know if I managed to find at least one of them, but I did find one mini boss that I fought, and he honestly should not have cost me as many deaths as he did. Like, I the first time I saw him, I was like, all right, cool, here's a mini boss. I'm gonna go fight him, you know? And I died to him. I said, all right, I understand. I wasn't properly timing my dodges and stuff, and I kind of panic parried as well.
Yeah.
So I understand that. The next 3 times I died to him, those were completely my fault because I was either greedy with my attacks, or I really should have been parrying instead of just trying to get one more swing in. Because the worst thing is that he had he had just a sliver of health left too. And so I really should have beaten him the 3rd and 4th attempt. So those times I was really just kicking myself because that was all on me, and I really could have beaten him those times. But the last time, though, which is part of the footage I do have, that, and I mean, honestly, even though I got hit a couple times by him, I made it seem like a whole lot better. Like, oh yeah, I could have totally done this the first try, bro. And it's like, no. Honestly, this is the result of me learning from my stubbornness and actually not being greedy. So I did eventually beat him, and I didn't really get too much further into the demo than I did before, where I was playing it on the Steam Deck. And it's partially because I feel like I've played enough right now where I definitely am enjoying what I've seen. And I mean, granted, there's definitely there's most likely going to be more in the base game than what's here, and this is just a simple taste of what these earlier sections are. Because I still just played the first chapter level. I didn't touch the other one that they had, but I said I will just go through the full game with essentially as fresh of eyes as possible, and just enjoy it that way. Because, like I said, I enjoyed this. I think the mechanics are great. But I think I've had enough where I can say, all right, I do like this, but I don't want to spoil myself too much right now, and I will go into the full game later on. But yeah, definitely great, and I definitely enjoyed what I played here. Definitely enjoyed playing it at a better performance than the Steam Deck too. And then, sort of mostly what I've been playing, though, has been Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. I finally convinced myself that to stop being salty over my last death and to just make some more progress. And so I did do that. I went back, completed Sora's side in Prankster's Paradise. Also, I did some more, or tried to also get some more of the items and stuff and find more chests and just level up more things, essentially to what I had been doing before I had essentially before I died and lost all my progress. So essentially I was just recuperating, just recovering everything I lost, and then just trying to make more progress from that point. So I did that more or less. Additionally, there was one, I guess he counts as a mini boss. There's one Dream Eater who reappears both in Sora and Riku's story, and essentially he just challenges you, and if you beat him, you get his recipe so you can craft him. And it was a whole lot easier because I thought, at least when I remembered on the 3DS, was he seemed a whole lot harder from what I remembered, because of the fact that he's, a mini boss, and he's also the thing with him is the fact that you can't, or at least you probably won't beat him the very first time you fight him, because he's a timed boss where after a certain amount of time passes, he will leave and you have to find him in another world and challenge him again. The good news is the fact that whatever damage you deal to him carries over to the next fight you have with him. So it's just a matter of, slowly whittling down his health. But I think when I found him as Sora, I probably knocked out half of his health. And I was like, all right, cool. So next time I find him in another world, that should be fine, more or less. But then when I found him as Riku, I said, I didn't remember him actually having the same health when you fight him as Riku. I thought if you find him as Sora, the health carries over only for Sora, but not for Riku. So it actually does transfer over. So I beat him the second fight as Riku. So I was like, all right, that's cool. I can't really craft his Dream Eater just because of the fact that I don't have all the items I need for him, but I was like, all right, cool. I have the recipe available because he's pretty decent as far as I can remember, but it's definitely been a while since I've played the game on the 3DS, so I don't really remember that. But I did complete Riku's side in Prankster's Paradise as well. I also completed both Sora and Riku's return to Traverse Town, and then started doing some of Country of the Musketeers, which I think I've done most of Sora, and I haven't done Riku yet, but I've also just been doing some other side stuff just because I do not want to do as much side content at the end of the game, just because I don't want to have another Birth by Sleep scenario where there's a whole lot of side content to do, and I just get really bogged down and don't feel like doing any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing there. Oh, and one last thing. I don't have any footage for this, but I played a little bit of Palworld, and it's primarily just because I wanted to see what the performance gains I would have with my new CPU would be. But I might have to come back to that just because I was only getting about 60 frames per second, and I've had better than that with the other CPU, so I don't know if it's a matter of the graphic settings being different. I mean, I do know that by default it boosted everything to Epic, and which I do know I was not playing at Epic at all. So I adjusted everything down, and I'm not entirely certain also if the last time I played was at 1080p, which was when I had only a 1080p monitor. So I don't know if the resolution also is different. I don't know if the ambient temperature at the time was a factor as well, which I don't think it really been too much of an issue. But I'll just have to test and play around with some more of the settings just to see, because I know I should be getting at bare minimum 90 frames with this hardware. Just because it's the same GPU. Now, one thing also I thought about it could be maybe the fact that I'm running on single channel memory because I only have the one stick of RAM, but
that could do it.
But nothing I can really do about right now, just because I did try several times to put in the other stick of RAM, and I kept getting a fail signal from my motherboard when I tried to boot up the PC. So for right now, I just have to stick with that single stick. But at least everything's working though, so I might just mess around with the settings and see if I can do something to get back to that 90. But yeah, that's everything I've played.
All right. Well, I definitely have to ask you something about Valor Mortis. So I did notice the mini boss fight in your footage, and you definitely got through him a lot faster than I did. But did you get the chest behind him?
Was it the one with, I think, some sort of ability, or? Yeah,
it had an ability in it. I think it was the one that slows down your shots with your gun, with your pistol.
Oh, okay. I don't think that's the one I picked up then, because I did go. I mean, maybe it was, but I just don't.
Because I mean, like, just watching the footage, I didn't see you go back to the chest, and so I was.
Okay, I must have gone to a different chest that I had seen then.
Yeah, I mean, I did see you got a different chest, which, funny enough, that enemy that you fought there, before you got that chest, I was thinking, you could take him out a lot more easily if you shoot his weak point. In his arm, because it does do quite a good chunk of his health, knocks off a good chunk. So
okay, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, because you'll come across guys like that every once in a while in the game. I mean, I think there's only one of them in this first level, but I think that there's probably 2 or 3 of them in the other level that you can do. So
okay,
but yeah. Yeah, the other guy I was talking about was the one that you fought right after you dropped down after fighting the mini-boss. That was the one that I called a mini-boss, but really is just a stronger enemy. But yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff. All right, so on my end, I actually ended up having a couple of games, well, technically 3 games that I hadn't planned on playing, one of which is not surprising at all, but I'll just I'll go through them. So obviously I played some more Final Fantasy Type 0. The one thing with this game is that I don't think it's in many places. It only seemed to impact me in one area, but there's like, it seems to be a pretty common problem if you're using the mod that lets you do the 60 frames per second or better. In one particular area, it's like a factory area. If you have that mod active and you don't have it capped at 30 FPS, the game will freeze. It freezes partway in, and then you just can't play. So once I found out that that was the case, I was able to, I dropped the frame rate down to 30, played through a good chunk of the level at that lower frame rate. And then once I got to a later spot and got to a save point, I went ahead, closed it out, put it back up to 60, and then everything was working fine, and I haven't had any problems since. But yeah, it did that both on the Steam Deck and on my desktop. So that was a little bit annoying because it took me quite a while to get through that. It's like I had to keep replaying a certain section because of the fact that I couldn't move forward. So, it wasn't like a massive section. It was basically just like getting started into a mission. You go into the area, you walk for a little bit, and the game freezes. So I guess that's probably an engine limitation because, the game was designed with 30 FPS in mind, potentially lower than that on the original PSP version. But either way, overall, I haven't had that problem. So, let's see here. As far as progress goes, I got through chapter 3 and started chapter 4, and it's I believe there's 8 total chapters for Type 0. So yeah, but I'm definitely it's still gonna be like my main game I'm playing most of the time. I just kind of got sidetracked by a couple other things. So the first of those is Destiny 2. I went ahead and jumped back in and moving the needle some more on the Final Shape campaign. I'm on what is the last proper mission, because I think my understanding is that there's 7 proper missions in the Final Shape campaign, and then after the world first completion of the raid, which happened a couple years ago now, then the final mission opens up, and it's basically, the final mission is something where it's like a 12-player encounter against the Witness, the big bad of the series and everything. So yeah, so I believe all I have to do is complete that one thing, and then I can go into like the big event, because it's like I can do the raid and I want to do the raid, but it's not necessary. So I'm kind of see about that, because I definitely want to do it. And the other thing is that another reason why I decided to jump back in was because there's, at least was, I don't know if there still is, but a dramatic discount on the remaining expansions, to where it's like 75% off or more, something like that. For you can buy the entire collection 75% off. And of course, I had the majority of the game with all the expansions and everything. The only thing I didn't have was the last 2 expansions, and altogether for those 2, it was like $16. So I just was like, sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and buy the last bit of the collection and then play some more, because this is something that I think I'm probably going to be playing a couple times a week. I might play a little bit more often than that. I haven't had a chance to play with any of my buddies yet, just because timing hasn't worked out for them to be playing at the same time I'm playing and all that. But I definitely am planning to play a little bit here and there, and just kind of slowly work on the stuff that I want to do in the game, because now that it's not getting new content, I don't feel like I'm just going to be spinning my wheels, slowly moving forward, but never really making any progress. So I can just take my time with it and play it as I see fit, because it's still, really fun. And of course it runs really well on both my desktop and my laptop. And it's funny because So I decided to, on my desktop, I think this is the first time I actually decided to bump all the settings up to maximum. I even put it up to 200% resolution, which is basically rendering at 5K. And I think at that, it was probably getting 80 to 100 FPS, rendering at 5K with everything maxed out. Then I dropped it down to 150% resolution, which is 4K, and was still getting like 100 to 120. And then, but then I was like, I would rather just have the extra frames, so I went ahead and put it back to 100% to back down to 1440p, and then I'm getting like, I think anywhere from 190 to 200 plus FPS. So it's very nice, and of course the game is still a lot of fun. They've made a lot of changes since the last time I played, but it seems like for the most part, the changes, it's like they made some changes and then they reverted some of those changes, and it's in a spot where, apart from a few things that are quite a bit different from what I've experienced in the past, most of the stuff isn't so far beyond my understanding to where I'm like lost at the changes. And it's still just a lot of fun. The gunplay is still really, really excellent, and I'm just looking forward to playing more of it. I haven't tried out Sparrow Racing League or anything yet. I haven't really tried out most of the new content, because basically the way I see it is I want to finish the Final Shape campaign, at least with my character that I've been working on it with. I'm not sure if I have to do it with my other two characters in order to get their subclass stuff unlocked, or if I can just like use some in-game currency to skip running through the campaign. If I have to run through it again with the other two characters, I'm just going to run through it on normal, because I've been doing it on the legendary difficulty with this one, because legendary you get a lot better rewards and stuff for completing it that way, and of course it's also like a nice challenge. So, but I kind of stopped, I've been playing it off and on, and then the other night I got frustrated with one of the missions, and I only tried it like once, maybe twice, and I just got annoyed because I got like the big boss of the part I was at down halfway through the fight, and then died like at the beginning of the second phase, and it was just like, what, I'm just gonna play something else for a while, and went back to Type 0. But some games that I randomly decided to check out. Yesterday, I decided to install to my Steam Deck Gears of War Reloaded. So this one, of course, I have never played a Gears of War before. And so this is my very first experience with Gears of War. And the game is definitely verified on Steam Deck. Like, it runs beautifully. Medium settings. I turned off anti-aliasing, because usually that's one of the things I will do on Steam Deck, because most of the time it just makes the game run better without hurting the visuals. In fact, it usually makes a big difference in performance, and really it still looks good even without anti-aliasing. But yeah, solid 60 FPS, runs really well. I tried doing 90 at first, but it wasn't consistent enough, so I just decided to go with 60 is the cap. And so yeah, it's been good from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely aspects of the gameplay that feel a bit dated, and some things that I'm not a huge fan of, like the sprinting in this game. Like, it makes sense why they do it the way they do it from a tactical perspective. How real soldiers probably would be sprinting across the battlefield, where they're crouching over to sprint, because then you're not a target, an obvious target for guns shooting at you. But it also makes it harder to control the direction you're sprinting and everything, because like most games, when you're sprinting, you can move around really easily. And this one, it's kind of like it's hard to turn while you're sprinting. And it makes sense logically why they would do it that way, and I'm guessing that it's probably more heavily inspired by how actual soldiers do things in real combat situations. But it's still just something that's hard to get used to. And I had to turn off the camera shake when you're sprinting like that, because that would just, it was not working for me. Like, it was making me feel kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. Not nauseous exactly, but it just, it was making it, it was kind of giving me a headache. So I had to turn that off. But yeah, so I just played through the very first episode or chapter or whatever it's called. Got all the way through to the end of that, and it's a pretty solid game. I will say, initially I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and just start at the highest difficulty, even though I never played this, and you know, we'll just see how that goes. I couldn't even get through the tutorial very well, and like, if I had really stuck with it, I'm sure I probably could have gotten it eventually. But after a bit, I'm just like, you know what? I've played enough hard games, so I'm just going to put it down to casual difficulty and just play the game. Just like, I just want to play the game, see if I enjoy it, and that definitely helped. So I was able to, you know, make more progress, and I mean, I still died a few times here and there, but it was mostly just getting myself caught in situations where I was like face to face with an enemy and they shot me, or there's this, the end of the chapter, and this is... I mean, you could call this a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler. It's just one of the type of enemies you face is called a berserker. And this enemy can't be damaged by normal gunfire. So basically, you have to guide it. You have to get it to charge you out of the tomb that you're in so that it can get out to the daylight. And then you have like this special laser thing that's just essentially you aim it at the enemy as a laser targeting system for like a big laser in the sky to fall down and destroy it. And I died quite a few times in that, because if you get hit by that berserker, it's pretty much a one-hit kill. You're pretty much dead. It just destroys you. So yeah, and of course, you know, with the sprinting being a little more awkward from that standpoint, it was also just kind of figuring out the positioning and all that. But yeah, and this is a game, like, I don't know how much I'm really going to play this right now, but I basically just decided, okay, I'm going to play a bit yesterday, and I, you know, went ahead and did the whole first chapter, and I don't know how many there are in this game. I don't think it's a lot. I think it's supposed to be a fairly short game, like a 15-hour game or something. Maybe even shorter than that, but yeah. I got enough of a taste to at least, you know what the game is like. And, I mean, at some point I'll definitely, obviously play more. It's just, at this current moment, I'm not planning to play right now. But the game that I decided to install truly on a whim, I'll give a little bit of background here. So, of course, I had talked about one of my goals for this year was to rotate between different platforms, including GOG. And so I can't remember what exactly inspired me to go for this particular game. It might have just been a YouTube thumbnail or something. But I decided that I wanted to give the Yakuza games a chance, because it's like, you know, I got that collection a while back when they were on sale before they delisted stuff. And so I went ahead and started Yakuza 0. And, basically, the reason that I started with Yakuza 0 is because, from what I could find as far as release order goes, even though technically like 3 and 4 remastered and 5 remastered, I think, all came before it, it also just, from a story perspective, it would just be weird, you know, starting with 3 and 4, because I don't have, you know, the original versions of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, yeah, so I went ahead and started playing that, and I'm hooked. One of the first things I want to mention is in this footage, the first thing that's playing is a karaoke section. And most of all, because of the fact that the song that they did is the very song that people made fun of for the dub that Yongya did when he took over the English voice of Kiryu. And So we're breaking the law. Except of course this is in Japanese. And so it's like initially I'm just like, okay, this is a banger, this is great, and then it got to the breaking the law, and it's like now normally any game, Japanese games, I will do the English dub. This one I did not because there wasn't a dub available as far as I could tell. At least not within the normal menu. I don't know if there is. Maybe the director's cut has that for Yakuza 0, but I don't have that. So I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to stick with the Japanese version, with the Japanese language for all the games, especially because of the fact that I know that they, of course, changed the voice actor for Kiryu to Yong Ya. And so, yeah, I'm digging it. I finished the first chapter earlier today, which it definitely took me probably about 10 to 12 tries to get through that boss. I don't know if it was quite that many, but it felt like that many. And it was very rarely a situation where it's like, oh, I'm just so frustrated. This was never like on the level of Dark Souls frustration by any stretch. I'm just playing on normal. But I, decided I would, I mean, let me try saying that again. After a number of attempts, I was able to beat him. And as an overall, like, the main thing with this game, like, I do like the combat, even though some aspects of it are a little awkward. I'm guessing probably as I gain more abilities, it'll get better. But more than anything, what has hooked me with this game is the story. Like, it's just, it starts out kind of basic, and then you start getting into like crime drama stuff, which, I mean, I know that's what these games are supposed to be, but like, it was compelling and the characters are interesting and like well acted and everything. And I'm just like, I'm super intrigued. I want to keep playing this game, and I haven't even done a whole lot. Like, I haven't even done most of the side activities. I think the only side thing I did so far was the karaoke, which was more just like a mandatory thing that they do as part of the tutorial, because I think chapter 1 is more or less a tutorial. Well, maybe some of the stuff leading up to the final area where you go and face the first chapter boss. But yeah, I'm really digging this game. Oh yeah, performance-wise, this game runs amazing on the Steam Deck. 90 frames per second, pretty much locked the entire time. The only time it seems to drop is like transitions, and which doesn't affect gameplay at all. And then some of the cutscenes are a lot of the scripted cutscenes are 30 FPS, which is just like, come on, it's like it's 90 the rest of the time. Why can't I'll just have to look and see if there's a way to make it 90 for the scripted ones too, because I mean, it's not a huge deal because it's only in cutscenes and it's only specific cutscenes, but all of the pre-scripted cutscenes, it is 30 FPS, and that is the one thing that is a disappointment. But like, I think the game, I didn't do anything with the settings. I'm pretty sure it said that it was like running at high settings, and I just put it at 720p so that it would be 16:9 aspect ratio for the recording. And yeah, otherwise it's like, yeah, the game runs amazing and plays great, and it's got me really interested. The one thing I'm trying to decide is, do I want to keep playing this or stop for now, work on Type 0 and keep working on that until I'm done with that, and then come back to this? And that's the one thing that I'm having a little bit of a hard time deciding, because I'm really enjoying this one to the point where like I want to keep playing it, but at the same time I also think this game might be longer than Type 0 potentially, and since I've already made more progress in Type 0, it almost seems like it would be better for me to just go back to and stick with that one until I'm completely done with it. But yeah, that's everything I've been playing this week.
All right. Well, since we're already on that topic, that's definitely quite a surprise to hear about Yakuza 0. And all in all, I mean, I know you've mentioned about you like playing the games in actual release order, but I think starting with zero or at least 1 really helps, just because the games do have a whole lot of continuity within them as far as with the story. And so starting out with 1, if not 0, definitely helps. And a lot of people do recommend playing 0 first, which I can agree, especially if you're going to go into Kiwami, just because they change stuff in Kiwami to try to enhance or try to sort of explain things that happened in 0, and just like, okay, this is sort of happened. So it definitely makes sense to start with 0. But yeah, 0, I definitely agree that the story is very gripping. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is great. I'm really enjoying this story. And that was one of the things that kept me going, even when, sort of similar to you, there were bosses that were just a bit frustrating because of the gameplay mechanics, which I also do agree. I never, even when I unlocked new skills and abilities, I don't think I ever truly mastered the combat, and I just never really was all that good at it. So some bosses and even certain enemy types were just a bit of a pain to deal with, and whatnot. But I will say, well, I think the first time you meet him is kind of a scripted fight. There is a boss where
Mr. Shakedown.
Yep, you already know him.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't do very well on him the first time I attempted the fight, and then I went back and I tried, I think 3 or 4 times, and I found out after, like, I think I got him maybe about halfway down, and then the fight just, ended, and I looked it up and found out that no, it's a scripted thing. The fight just ends regardless of whether you do a lot of damage to him or not, and then after that first time you can take him down.
Yeah, I also tried fighting him too, because I had found a telephone where I saved my data. I said, all right, I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna go against you, and I'm not. Okay, this guy really just giving me a hard time now, just because of how much damage he deals. But yeah, the game definitely is just really fun, and it might be better to finish Type 0 before you finish this one. I know at some point I was also doing some side stuff, so I can't necessarily say, but I've put in about 43 hours into the game and completed it. So, that's just a rough estimate to give you I didn't 100% the game, but that's about how long it took me to beat the game itself. But, you might be able to do it in less time than that. So that's just I give you an idea if you want to just pause it for right now and come back to it. And you said you're playing the GOG version?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's definitely great. Oh, and yeah, I think the very first dub they had for the series was with 7. With the RPG one, and then from that point on, that's when they started adding in the English dubs.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it wouldn't be unless you bought the director's cut of 0, and if you happen to buy the, I guess, director's cut of 1 Kiwami and 2 Kiwami, because the original Kiwamis were still just in Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point, since this one doesn't even have the option, I'm just going to stick with Japanese the whole time, because, even though I typically like doing the English dub, especially knowing the fact that they do change the voice actor, to me, at that point, I don't really have any interest in hearing Yang Ya's voice all the time, because, I used to watch his videos, and it would just be distracting to me. Plus, the Japanese is nice, and, obviously it's well acted, and the lip movements match that far more than they would the English dub, so.
Yeah. Um, Jumping back to Type 0, just for my reference, in case I get the game at some point and also install the mod, what chapter, or I guess what mission had the factory level?
It's chapter 3. It's like it's the last mission you do of chapter 3. I can't remember. It's something to do. It's like I want to say it's a Magitech armor factory or something like that. Ooh. But it's like, yeah, it's one of the main missions, and they just tell you that you have to go destroy some Magitech armor prototypes is what it is. And so yeah, when you get that mission, you have to do it at 30 FPS for the beginning section. And what I just did was I did it until I got to the first real save point in there, and then once I switched it back, then I didn't have any more problems with it freezing.
Okay. And then one last question regarding Destiny. About how many expansions are there for Destiny 2?
There's a lot. Some of them technically, like if you buy the expansion, it just basically unlocks either like you don't necessarily have access to the campaign anymore. I think most of the campaigns are still available. I think it's only the oldest ones that they got rid of, but buying like the older expansions basically just give you access to more weapons and armor and stuff like that. I think maybe some destinations as well, but I can't quite remember. Especially because, most of them I played when they came out, and so I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to what all's been removed from the game apart from like the vanilla campaign that I know that they got rid of.
Okay. Yeah, just because I was just asking because, well, since you mentioned that there was a major discount on the game, I thought, well, maybe since it's technically complete, I might give it a whirl at some point. So I'll see. I
mean, I would definitely check and see if the discount's still active. If it is, I'm pretty sure it's very cheap. You get a lot for your money. Even if you only play a little bit here and there, and I'd be happy to help you do some stuff as well. I mean, I know timing is not always the easiest thing, but I'm sure we could work something out. Try to find some fire teams to do raids, because or even just dungeons, because the dungeons are really good too. The dungeons are really good, the raids are really good. And granted, I haven't done probably about half of the ones in Destiny 2. Some of the ones that they used to have are no longer active, but they gave you the ability in the recent update, or the June 9th update that has the new I can't remember what it's called, but the special Pantheon thing basically gives you the ability to do the boss fights for all of those raids that no longer exist.
Huh.
So that's pretty cool, because those raid bosses are very cool encounters.
So is that like sort of a boss rush mode, or is that just...
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, like, thankfully it's not to where you have to fight them, and you can't stop at all. Like, you can stop in between encounters and come back to it. It's just that each week the checkpoint resets. Unless you have someone who holds the checkpoint. Like if someone has the checkpoint and then they stay online when the weekly reset happens, then they can then they'll still have the checkpoint in the new after reset, so then they can pass it around to people.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Good stuff.
All right. Well, let's get into the news. And last week was the big show, and this week is probably going to be a lot smaller than that. Not another 3.5 hour episode. But the big thing for this week is that Xbox is bad. Xbox is dead, as usual. And there's definitely some interesting stuff with Xbox, and not really being sure what exactly the future is going to be. Honestly, it's just it's confusing as all get out, and it's one of those things where we just kind of have to wait and see what's even going to happen with him. But to start off, one of the big things is that there is a rumor going around, and I don't think anything has been officially confirmed yet. But the thing is that Xbox is going to be closing some of their studios. It appears that the most likely one is going to be Compulsion Games, which is the one that recently did South Midnight. But there may also be some other studio closures, including I'm trying to find Ninja Theory, who of course did the Hellblade games, which is kind of ironic considering the fact that they just announced Senua, and Double Fine, which of course is best known for the my brain is not working tonight. The Psychonauts games and things like Grim Fandango and that sort of thing, but also of course recently Kiln. And Kiln was a flop. South of Midnight was a flop. Hellblade 2 seems to pretty much have been a flop. And basically right now, the rumor that's going around, both reported by Bloomberg, by Jason Schreier, as well as some of VGC's, Video Game Chronicles' own sources, is that they're in active negotiations to potentially spin off from Xbox. And whether or not that can actually happen is hard to say, but we have seen it happen before, particularly with Toys for Bob, who did the Spyro Reignited trilogy, and they also did the the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy, and now, of course, they're working on the new Spyro game. So it's not impossible, but it's kind of hard to see what exactly is going to happen with that. All that being said, what are your thoughts?
It's definitely interesting. I think it's, like you said, very ironic that you have Ninja Theory potentially shutting down after they just announced Senua, and the timing just is horrible. Obviously these companies have at one point have put out games which might not have been the best system sellers, but they were acclaimed, like Double Fine. They made Psychonauts, which was a cult classic, and they made the Grim Fandango, which I didn't play initially or upon release, and I played that way later, probably within probably about 3-4 years ago. I probably played it, and I realized, oh wow, this is actually a good game, and I enjoyed it. Psychonauts, I played that as well. Haven't completed it, but I played that, and I'm thinking to myself, this is a very fun game. It's a very funny game, and I definitely enjoyed that too. And I remember at one point seeing, I think this was when they were even trying to just go to a crowdfunding site called Fig. They were trying to get funding for Psychonauts 2. So, they've definitely had some rocky stuff as far as with just trying to keep the lights on, essentially. So when they, of course, came under Xbox, Microsoft and Xbox, that seems like, hey, this is going to be pretty good. But apparently not. And like you said, the one big thing that is possibly just contributing to these studios potentially shutting down is just that they're not really selling. That's like the big thing. And I think probably the biggest thing, or at least the one that is bleeding the most, I would say, could be Ninja Theory, because while they're definitely doing a lot of impressive stuff, what with how they made Hellblade 2 look very stunning graphically, and how much effort they put into doing the motion capture and getting all the graphics with UE5 and everything like that. I'm pretty certain that wasn't cheap. Trying to make sure we're going to do the best that we can with the with just the sound and making sure that you can hear all the whispers. And so we're trying to focus on every detail. We're trying to top tier motion capture, and I'm pretty certain that's not cheap to do all that. So yeah, if the game doesn't do well, then it's not, you're pretty much just bleeding a lot of money in that when that ends. So I can understand that. Now, these studios shutting down, I think to a degree is a bit of a shame, because they did provide some sort of variety to Xbox's portfolio. Just because, unlike with Sony doing more or less the same type of genre, these different studios did something different that gave Microsoft or Xbox just variety and spices and flavor and stuff like that. So it's understandable. At the same time, though, I also understand that these games also didn't sell, or possibly didn't sell for multiple reasons. I mean, for one thing, Hellblade 2 was way more expensive than the first game, and it's not like it was a long game either. So it's like, why am I paying a lot of money when I'm getting essentially, while the game looks prettier, it's more or less about as long as the first game, which wouldn't have been that long anyway. And then South of Midnight 2, some people weren't interested. I know I wasn't interested in it, so I didn't get it. And I think what was and like you said, Kiln was a flop, but I mean, at least when they did Psychonauts 2, that I believe did pretty decently. So, but for the most part, like you said, all the more recent stuff hasn't been that great. And I think, was it Compulsion that did We Happy Few, or is that another studio that did that? So, I mean, I know We Happy Few critically didn't do all that great, but I didn't think it did too bad sales-wise, though. So, these studios definitely have the talent to do something that's decent, but also the Compulsion did, I think, Vampire. I think they did that as well, which I think was also a combination of being, I think that one also did no, that was another studio. Never mind, that wasn't them. But the studios do have the potential. It's just, I don't know. I'm hoping, I mean, if they can spin off and just be independent, that can definitely help them. But I think they definitely would need to maybe reevaluate things, and just like for their future projects, because they're going to be independent essentially. So that means you have to come with your own money, and that means you have to make sure that you are spending wisely, and you are not doing anything that could harm or jeopardize your business. So definitely be careful on that end as well. But if they can make a comeback, then great. That's good. But otherwise it's going to be a shame on that end. But I mean, I think it's possible this might happen. I think that the reports from Bloomberg are pretty. I mean, especially since BGC also is also sort of verifying the same information. I think this is definitely likely, and considering the fact that Asha Sharma is also trying to revamp Xbox in multiple ways, this could definitely be one way of her saying, all right, what's not working, and we need to cut what's not working. And this could definitely be, these studios could definitely be a part of the this isn't working category. But that's everything I have right now.
So I mean I'm sure this is accurate. I wouldn't doubt it in the least. Even if Jason Schreier wasn't attached to it, it would still be pretty believable, because none of these games did well. And I mean, it's a shame from the standpoint of, like, particularly Double Fine. I think that's especially a shame because they do make good games. And Kiln was never something that I was interested in personally, just because it's just not my kind of game. I don't really like the multiplayer only games. But I do like what what Double Fine does from that standpoint. As far as Compulsion goes, I mean, Sound of Midnight initially did have me interested, but I ended up, well, honestly, I lost interest mostly because of the fact that one of the game directors basically said that every, like, white male gamers are a mistake or something to that effect. And it's basically just like, if you hate me, then I'm not buying your game. I'm sorry. It's like I was actually reasonably interested, because to me, it kind of gave me some Infamous 2 vibes, Bayonetta, as we called it previously. But now I'm just like, no, that's fine. I just won't buy your game. And if I was going to buy it, I would buy a steeply discounted copy that I'd probably get from like Instant Gaming or something, because from that standpoint, like if you're going to have that attitude towards your main audience, especially Xbox gamers, where it's like you have the Dubro guys, probably a lot of white guys in there. And if you think that about your audience, good riddance. You don't treat your customers that way. Like you just don't. It's rude. And I don't know if the story itself did that type of thing or not. That's the one thing I really don't know about. But yeah, if you don't want my money, then I just won't give it to you. And I had considered buying it. With Ninja Theory, the Hellblade gameplay experience is just not very good. I mean, it's not like it's terrible. It's just too much of a very pretty walking simulator with some very light combat and light puzzle solving. And I mean, I will give it, like, I don't have anything against them otherwise, other than the fact that I just don't find the game super interesting. I mean, I still plan to finish Hellblade 2 because I, have it, but as an overall, I just don't see it as being that interesting from that standpoint. Now, visually, it is very impressive. It's easily the best looking game out there. And I will give them big credit that they didn't slap an ugly filter on the actress who played Senua. I mean, they, despite what everyone has been saying about what they did with Deborah Ann Wool for God of War Laufey, or a Monkey D. Luffy, as Joe from Seattle calls it. Where they clearly just slap the opposite of a beauty filter on her. With the actress who is playing Senua, even though she's not wearing any makeup, she still looks beautiful. And it's because of the fact that they're not slapping an ugly filter on her. They're just showing the actress's face. And it's like, imagine that. You show someone who's beautiful, show their face without makeup, and they can still be beautiful. Instead of it being like, we're just going to like make the nose bigger, make the wart bigger, and, do everything we can to make them less attractive than they are in real life. And anyway, I'm not going to get into all the fanboy defense on that standpoint, but getting back to these studios, so I do hope that they might actually have the opportunity to spin off and do their own thing. But if they're going to, they are going to have to make sure that they are, being responsible with their money. They're not just pursuing these pet projects that are not going to appeal to anyone, because then they have no one to blame but themselves. I mean, personally, I think that this is definitely an Xbox management issue. The fact that they, particularly with Compulsion games, that they're putting out a game that nobody really asked for. I mean, I guess, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think actually the original version of the game was going to be a white protagonist for that game. And I mean, while I think
fits perfectly having a black woman in that space, you know, especially in Louisiana swamps and, you know, like the New Orleans, you know, kind of thing. Like, I think it fits, but the game itself, despite all the things that it did artistically, it just wasn't something that people really were wanting. And on top of that, you know, when you have their community manager basically alienating a large chunk of their audience, you know, you don't really have any good reason to. I mean, that's the kind of thing you can't get away with as a small studio. You just can't do that.
Yep.
And if you do, then don't be surprised when everything completely bombs and fails. So, I don't know. I think that there's potential for some of these. And I still think people can turn the ship around, you know, absolutely. If given the opportunity, there is the possibility they could turn the ship around. Now, from the standpoint of Microsoft letting these studios go, like, I get it in a sense, because of the fact that, yes, they have to trim the fat a bit in order to try and rework Xbox to make it more profitable, to make it truly successful, especially if they actually want to legitimately compete beyond what they've been doing, because even though I still believe that that Game Pass is a lot more profitable than people give it credit for, because they say that the math doesn't math, but I don't think they're really doing the math properly. They're just not looking at it. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. The reality is that there's still things that they have to rework. And I don't think that doing console exclusives is going to give them what they're looking for, but, you know, obviously they need to do something in order to make it more sustainable for the long term. Personally, I think getting rid of all your AA studios is probably not the solution, but maybe just having them make smaller games and doing what you can to reduce the budgets. That's going to be the big things, because I think I read somewhere, and I can't remember if this was actually like based on what was actually said by Asha Sharma or otherwise, but one of the things they're going to be pursuing probably more is the bigger games. And it's just like, this is not your solution. Yes, you can put out these big games and they may end up, you know, doing really well. But if you put out these big games with these massive budgets and you're paying for things like someone, you know, doing motion capture for a cube, which, you know, I don't know if Xbox is going to do something that stupid as well. But it's just one thing where it's literally just, these are reasons why your budgets are so out of control, is because you're paying for things that are stupid that you don't need to pay for. It boggles the mind why anybody does things like this. And these, I mean, there's the rumor, supposedly the budget for Gears of War E-Day is $400 million, which honestly I find kind of hard to believe. I'm just like, are you sure about that? Or are you just making stuff up because you want to make an Xbox look bad? I mean, like, the Xbox tax is definitely real, but if it is in fact that high of a budget, it makes even less sense for them to make an exclusive. And yes, granted, that's only on the Xbox, on the console side it's exclusive, and it's not exclusive on PC. I mean, you know, it's also coming to PC, which means that, you know, obviously there's all that audience as well, but are they going to make that difference up? Maybe, maybe not. Like, there's so much about this stuff that just doesn't make sense to me, and everything that's going on with Xbox, like, I've given them the benefit of the doubt a lot of times, and not even necessarily like, oh, I think they're good. Even though I think some of the things they've been doing are good, but more just because of the fact that I see some things that I see as positive for the gamers and everything else. But right now everything's so up in the air, and we're getting a bunch of rumors without a whole lot of confirmed stuff, and so, I mean, obviously Xbox is bad, and Xbox is dead, and they're gonna just keep being dead for the next, you know, 10 years if they last that long. As kind of like a side thing along with this story is, there's the possibility, and it's kind of unclear about how much of this was said directly versus this is just kind of like people interpreting what's been said. But there's the possibility that Xbox could actually be spinned off from Microsoft, like do its essentially become completely separate entity. And I don't know exactly how that works. I mean, and when I say I don't know how it works, I'm not saying, oh, like that doesn't make any sense. It's more like just I don't understand how it actually works. Other than maybe it's just like, okay, they're separating from Microsoft, and so they can do their own thing without having to have Microsoft there. But that also means they lose a bunch of the funding that they have from Microsoft. And whether or not they can sustain that is hard to say, because we don't know how much of the money they make is from Game Pass versus not. How much of, it's like, what all is this going to look like? And it's super confusing. I mean, part of me didn't even want to talk about this yet, because it's just, we know so little other than the rumors. But at the same time, there wasn't a whole lot of topics to talk about this week, and this is still an interesting thing to discuss. So what do you think on that one?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, like you, I'm really interested in knowing how that would work, just because when a company is spun off from a larger company, like you said, it's a separate entity now. So it's no longer, related to the first company or the parent company it was originally a part of. And a lot of times it's because sometimes it's because the parent company realizes that the subsidiary could be it could be more profitable if it's separate. It's something that I've been looking at just because through work and stuff like that. So I have seen, or at least had to do research on spin-offs and stuff like that. So it's definitely interesting. The biggest question I would have would be, how would that impact both Microsoft and Xbox? Just because, if Xbox is would and it's its own company now, would that mean, would Xbox from this point on have to pay Microsoft a license for using Microsoft? Since Xbox consoles do use a modified version of Windows, and especially because Helix definitely is going to be using Windows 11, would they have to consistently just pay a license to Microsoft to use Windows? Additionally, how would that work on Microsoft with Xbox, with the Xbox app being integrated into Windows, and also with Game Pass being a thing? It's just very interesting, because Microsoft for such a long time has tried to integrate Windows and Xbox together. Yeah. That if you're going to separate now, that's a whole lot of untangling that you need to do. Yeah. Either that, or you have to come up with some sort of deal where you can say, okay, we're separating, but we're going to have this deal or this contract in place, even if it's something that would probably have to be renewed after every so years or so, or whatnot. But, or maybe have to sign up a new agreement or something like that. But it's just really, really interesting to have to keep all that in place, just because you're separate now. And it's like, okay, that's very interesting. And yeah, it's just confusing to think about how that would work. Yeah. Now, sometimes spin-offs are good for the subsidiary. Sometimes they might be disastrous, but it just really depends on the company and what they do, and how things are handled. So it's interesting. I mean, if Microsoft was spun off under, if it was a spin-off like the older days, then maybe things might have been worse. Like, I think, it probably wouldn't have done well. But if Asha Sharma is really as adamant at turning Xbox around and making things as good as they can be, I mean, maybe. I know I had my skepticism about her when she first started, but she has at least started to, or at least, even if the results aren't where she wants them to be yet, she's at least putting her money where her mouth is as far as actually taking action on things. So I'll definitely give her credit for that. So if Microsoft, said, hey, we're gonna spin off Xbox and it's now its own separate company, then she probably would be in a position where she definitely would be buckling down on everything because it's all on her now. So I think she definitely would do everything that needs to be done. But yeah, that's very interesting to hear, and I definitely will want to look more into that, especially as things progress and if we get more concrete information. But I'm definitely glad you shared that bit of information.
Yeah, I have no idea what this is going to mean. I think Oh No, It's Alex was theorizing, and I hope this is incorrect for Xbox fans, that they are going to be changing up Helix and that it could end up being just basically like, because of how expensive it is to produce and all of that, instead just make it basically a streaming box. So it's like, hey, it's a lot cheaper, but now you don't own anything. And like, I hope that's not what they're gonna do. Like, I right now everything is just super unsure, and like I get it that the costs have gone up dramatically. I think Asha Sharma said that last year prices had gone up about double in the fall to what they were, and that they've since gone up another double, if not 4 times, since the fall, and that they're expected to go up again. And so it's just like, yeah, I can see what's going on here from that standpoint. But yeah, this whole thing is just, it's a bizarre situation, and I don't really know what to think anymore. Like, I've never thought that Xbox was ever going to sell as many consoles as PlayStation. It just won't. But now I'm even less sure what's going to happen because we know so little. And it's definitely an interesting thing to think about, because obviously we're coming at it from an outsider's perspective because neither one of us have ever owned an Xbox. We're not invested in the ecosystem because we're just not. I mean, I find more of the games interesting than not nowadays, just because I like the fact that they have such a wide variety of different titles. But, what's going to happen with all this? If they separate, does that mean that Game Pass is... Well, I mean, obviously that would mean Game Pass would be all theirs, because supposedly Game Pass was subsidizing a lot of other expenses for Microsoft. I've heard kind of different ways of phrasing that, and so I'm not entirely clear what was actually said on that front, whether they were saying that that Game Pass was subsidizing other stuff that Microsoft had, other debts and so on and so forth, or if they were actually being subsidized by Microsoft to help cover the losses from Game Pass. And it's like, none of that is clear to me, because depending on who you ask, you're getting a different position on what it actually is. Personally, I think it makes more sense that it was probably Game Pass was subsidizing it, because I mean, I did the math yesterday. If you're looking at an average of $15 a month, people are paying for Game Pass. Average. Some people are paying I mean, a lot of people are paying more than that for Game Pass Ultimate, paying the $23 a month. Some people are paying less than that. There's a very small minority of people that they worked it out to where they've basically been able to get it for free. Like I know a guy who was able to do that through Bing rewards points and stuff until they closed that loop, and he's still good through 2028. But if you kind of average it out, I just said conservative estimate would say $15 a month is what they are. And it's supposed to be about 34 million users or 35. I can't remember which number I worked with, but one of those two comes out to $525 million a month that they're making off of Game Pass.
Wow.
Now, obviously, that's not all profit. Because
Right,
there's
right.
expense that goes into that, but that's still a heck of a lot of money. And like I did a comparison, Ghost of Yotei having sold roughly 5 million copies is what's supposedly the case right now. At $70 a pop. Some people are going to be spending, some people spent more than that. Some people have gotten on discounts, but average it out $70 a month or $70 total. And we'll say that, and that's, over the course of the past 8 months or whatever since the game came out. That's about $350 million. So you're looking at the difference there. $350 million for 5 million copies of a game sold, which is nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they didn't spend very much on this game. Like, it wasn't anywhere near as expensive as like Spider-Man 3 and that sort of thing, or Spider-Man 2. It wasn't a $300 million game. I think it was significantly cheaper. Plus, of course, they had a lot of assets they could reuse from Ghost of Tsushima, because it's really not drastically different visually from Ghost of Tsushima. So they probably saved a lot of money. They probably made a nice profit on the game, regardless of whether it sold the 5 million or not. But the fact that you're looking at that $350 million for one game over the course of 8 months versus $525 million per month, every single month for those users. And granted, there have been cancellations, so it may be closer. We'll just say it's 30 million. That's still a whole lot. I mean, even if you still have 30 million users, even if you lost 4 to 5 million users before maybe some of them resubbed, that's still a heck of a lot of money per month that they're making. And the idea, of course, that people are saying, oh, well, that doesn't count but if you count the cost of making the games, then they're just losing money. And it's like, not really, because even if you count the cost of making games, which I don't think that makes any sense, because the games can make money in other ways. The games aren't being made exclusively for Game Pass. They're being made they're being put into Game Pass, and there's a cost of putting that in there, but the game cost itself is paid for in other ways as well. So anyway, regardless of any of that, it's a lot of money that they make from Game Pass. So I think that more likely than not, Game Pass has subsidized other things in Microsoft. And Microsoft, of course, still wants to make a lot more money because games are getting more expensive to make. Hardware is more expensive to make, especially. And because of all that, it's like Microsoft saying, this can't be sustainable long term, especially because of hardware prices, if we don't do some chopping here and there. And I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but I do understand it. And the one thing that does have me concerned is that apparently at least one of the rumored closures is potentially Arcane, which would mean Blade would not be happening. And that's one where I'm like, I really want Blade to happen, because Arcane has made really good games. And I mean, obviously, Arcane Austin is a whole separate thing with whatever it's called, Red something or other. Why can't I remember the name of the game? It's still on my wish list. I keep looking for it. Redfall, yes. I'm like, I'll buy it when it's really cheap, because it doesn't look like a terrible game to me, even if it's not the most exciting, but I'll buy it cheap. But yeah, who knows what's all going to happen. We're just going to have to wait and see with all of this. And yeah.
I hope they're not shutting down Arcane.
Yeah.
Now I would like them to make a good Blade game. I mean, I think there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to make a good one.
Right.
It's pretty simple, self-explanatory. Just make a cool character fight vampires.
Right.
Just
have even some of the similar mechanics what they had in Dishonored.
Obviously, exactly.
Third person
as well.
Exactly. Maybe even make it third person, but also have a first person mode, so you could be first person Blade. I'd be down for either one. I mean, I think third person would be better for that game, but first person could be fun too. It's just like yeah. So hopefully that's not actually the case. I know that Nate the Hate was a partial source for that, but I didn't actually read what his statement was, and so I have a feeling that more likely than not, it is reading into what he was saying versus him actually saying Arcane is on the chopping block. But, I mean, who knows? Because the fact that they haven't put anything out in a while, it's possible that they could unfortunately get shuttered, or I would hope that at the very least that would be a studio that even if they... that at worst they would spin off and be able to, continue on with their work with the Blade game and everything else. But I also can't imagine that, I mean, unless they just haven't made any progress on it, which I highly doubt, that Disney would be like, yeah, you guys are okay. You don't have to worry about your contract for making this game. Mm-hmm. So, who knows?
Yeah, because that's the other thing too, is because I feel like if Microsoft, I don't know how much it would have cost, but if they had to spend money on getting the licensing,
right,
they're gonna make sure they put that money to work.
Yeah.
So I doubt they would just shut things down. They would at least want to have some sort of product out.
Yeah, and that's actually one that I could see them doing as an exclusive if they did bring it out. Because they've still never officially announced that it was coming to PlayStation. And granted, this was, back before they started really moving stuff over to PlayStation, but Blade could just end up being Xbox and PC exclusive.
I can see that.
I mean, I still think it should go everywhere because that's just how it should be, but, if it's not going to go everywhere, I think that's one of the few games that could actually probably get people to buy an Xbox, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, more likely than not, they would just say, no, I'm not going to buy an Xbox. For the same reason that we don't buy PlayStations and Xboxes. So. All right. Well, as our resident Palworld, you want to talk about Nintendo getting kicked in the face, kicked in the balls?
Kicked in the Pal Sphere.
Yes, kicked in the Pal Spheres. That's the title, kicked in the Pal Spheres.
So, the lawsuits that Nintendo has had against Pocket Pier has been going on for quite some time, since 2024, and it is coming to a close this year. However, things aren't exactly playing out as Nintendo had anticipated. Originally, they were trying to get the Power release, just halted in its tracks with the lawsuit. But eventually they were forced to backtrack and essentially just say, all right, instead of trying to just stop Palworld altogether because they were getting blocked from it's like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. They now are only filing their claims against older versions of Palworld. So like the current version of Palworld 1.0 and whatever subsequent versions they've had probably within maybe up to the past year or so. Those are pretty much untouchable for Nintendo. So they can't touch that. They can only target the older builds of the game. And even if Nintendo wins this lawsuit against Pocket Pair, At best, they're going to win $30,000. The equivalent of $30,000. It's 5 million yen, but that just comes out to $30,000. But the thing, though, is that they've spent much more on this lawsuit than $30,000. They've spent about $40 million for this. Just for $30,000. You know, I don't think these things kind of weigh out equally, more or less. And again, this is something that has been dragged out for 2 years. 2 years. And they were trying to get the game shut down. They couldn't do that. And so now, at best, they're just going to get 30,000. You know, if they come out on top. Now, all the evidence has been brought in, or I believe is about to be completely brought in. Actually, no. All the evidence has to be submitted. It's planned to be submitted in October the 1st, and then their opinions will be presented on November 9th. And then after that, I believe that is when the final verdict will be passed in court. And, you know, from that point on, we'll know what happens one way or another. But before I get into my possibly lengthy thoughts on this, what do you have to say on this, sir?
Well, it couldn't have happened to a better company, you know. I mean, I didn't realize it was going to be quite that long before everything's closed out, essentially. But either way, this is not looking good for Nintendo. Losing $37 million. No, I'm sorry. $39,700,000. No, that's not right. Anyway, point is that it's a lot. They lost. They just lost money. They didn't gain anything, and on top of that, Palworld is still successful. And if they can't stop Palworld from coming out in its 1.0 and subsequent releases, I can't wait to see it dominate. Now, okay, maybe dominate's not the right word, but I can't wait to just see it do well. I mean, it's already done really well. You know, the fact that I believe that the figures are up to like 25 million sold copies. And that's not even counting all the people that played through Game Pass. And, I mean, yes, obviously the Pokemon games always sell extremely well. Is it going to catch up to Pokemon? Probably not. Probably not ever. I mean, Pokemon's, you know, been going strong now for 30 years. And so it's a juggernaut, obviously, but I love to see Palworld win this, not just because of the whole David versus Goliath thing, but because of the fact that all of their lawsuits were completely bogus. There have been so many other games throughout the years that are basically Pokemon clones, far more than Palworld is, and like have very little distinction in terms of gameplay. Like they're almost identical. You know, you might have like a slight difference, like you have Cassette Beasts where it's something to do with, you know, cassette tapes. I don't know exactly how that works because I've only seen the title. I've never played the game. You've had Digimon just about as long as Pokemon's been going. You've had all these other things, and Nintendo's never gone after any of these, or if they have, it didn't go anywhere. And all those things still exist, but Palworld is the first one that really threatened them to that extent. I mean, the fact that it's sold as well as it has. And the best part, I think, about all of this is that it's because Nintendo went after them. I think that's a big part of why it has been as successful as it has. Is because people just were fed up with it. They're just like, you know, why are you going after these guys? Just because they're doing things in a different way and they're using similar monster designs and everything like that. The game, really what it came down to is that they feel threatened by it. They don't want a competitor. They want to give the bare minimum. And if there's a competitor that actually gives people something better, then they actually have to try harder. And as it stands right now, you know, Wind and Waves, the next Pokemon games, which I believe that's next year that's coming out. It might even be 2028. I can't remember. All we saw was a cinematic. I mean, they might try to claim that that's Switch 2 footage, and it might be. But more likely than not, it was just a cinematic and or was PC footage because, you know, it's being developed on PC. It would be hilarious if it actually came to PC, but that won't happen. At least not officially. But yeah, I love to see this. And if not for the fact that I know I will probably not play it, at least not anytime soon, I would probably grab it just to spite Nintendo. That would be my one and only reason for actually grabbing Palworld is just to spite Nintendo. And not that I'm not interested at all in it, it's just I don't know when I would ever get to it. That's really what it comes down to. And you know, with as much content as there was when you were playing early on, and how much more there is now, and how much more there will be once it hits 1.0, I'm not really sure I want to try diving into something like that. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, this was definitely interesting to see. And I, like you said, one of the biggest reasons why this game got as popular was just because Nintendo targeted them. I mean, it's the whole Streisand effect, where sure, people were talking about the game when it released, and people were saying, hey, you know, here's this game that's like Pokemon with guns, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, cool, it's trending. But it really started trending as, you know, once Nintendo sued Pocket Pair.
Yep.
And so then that's when people were like going like, oh man, okay, okay, we see how it is, Nintendo. And to be honest, that kind of to a degree was what sort of sent me off, where I was like, all right, you know, I see this game, Palworld, it seems interesting, seems cool. I'll probably get it at some points, you know, it's still in early access anyway. But then, especially once Nintendo, you know, started filing the lawsuit, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely getting a copy of this game now. And so I really just got into the game. And I mean, I definitely have been enjoying it. I think there are definitely some things that were rougher early on that were fixed. But, you know, all in all, I think it's definitely a solid game as it is. But, like I said early on, it's really not even like they were trying to completely copy, you know, a Pokemon game, because outside of, you know, of course you have the pals and there are some designs that are similar to other Pokemon, gameplay wise, it's completely different. It's like you're playing a game like Ark Survival. You just happen to have Pokemon like characters to help you out while you do that thing, or they're helping you out, or you know, you're encountering them. So it's completely different from what you play with Pokemon. And like you said, there are other games that gameplay wise are closer to Pokemon. You know, you've mentioned Digimon, but you know, they're like Nexomon was one. There was another game, because I got this one for free on GOG. I can't remember what it was, but that one is also
Koromon.
Yes, that's another one. And this one was more of an action RPG, but there was one game on the Nintendo DS that was definitely a Pokemon like game. I really wish what it was, because it had a bit of a fan following and stuff, but I just can't remember what it was. But like, it was another Pokemon like game. So like, these types of games have existed for a long time, and and it's just ridiculous as far as how Nintendo said certain mechanics were patented. And it's like, okay, that's really a bit of a stretch here, guys. Like, you're saying because you use an object that can summon another summon a creature to fight for you. It's like, do you know how many games that can apply to? I mean, you could even go and say playing any of the Yu-Gi-Oh video games counts as that, because you're using a card to summon a monster to fight for you, to attack an enemy. It's like, that's so stupid. And, you know, especially with, I think one of the worst offenses was just the riding your pals, like saying, oh, because you can ride your Pokemon. I'm like, are you serious? Are you really serious right now? Do you know how many games have you ride a mount in an overworld setting. You have the World of Warcraft games that did that way before Pokemon did that. You have other games that did. In fact, you even have a game on your own console right now that's doing it, and that is Monster Hunter Stories.
Yeah.
Are you really and that's the only reason why, because Capcom does the same thing, but you do not sue Capcom because they've got the money to defend themselves, first off. Also, if you sue Capcom, you know they're going to pull all of their third-party games from your platform. And do you really want to lose out on Mega Man? Not that they've done really anything to do with Mega Man, but do you want to lose out on Mega Man, Resident Evil ports? Do you want to lose out on Monster Hunter? Like, do you want to lose out on these games? Nintendo does not want to lose out on money, so they are not suing Capcom at all. And Bandai Namco, Digimon survived. Like, in all the Digimon RPG games, they're not going to sue Bandai Namco because that's a lot of games. And also, again, Bandai Namco has that money to back them up as well. And also, Square also had something sort of similar with World of Final Fantasy, where you can do summoning, and I can't remember if it is kind of like having a Pokeball, which you can summon creatures and stuff, but it's something similar to that degree. And I know that Nintendo would not sue Square Enix.
Yeah.
Again, they've got the money and they've got the games that you want, so you're not going to sue them. The only reason you're targeting Palworld out of all of these games, and also out of all the indie games, is just because they got too big for your liking, and you knew that they did not have the money on hand, or seemingly did not have the money to back them up.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I think this probably definitely helped Pocket Pair, is that they had the, I guess, some sort of deal with Sony. So I don't know if that helped, if they got that revenue stream where they could say, all right, we can buy a decent lawyer to help defend us. Because if that's the case, it definitely helped, I would say. But, you know, Pocket Pair was able to fight this, and it's great. And so the fact that, while in the grand scheme of things, Nintendo is not going to lose sleep over $40 million, because they'll make that up with, you know, their next Pokemon game, or their next big game, or, you know, Kirby, Mario, Zelda. They'll make up that revenue in that end. However, you know, the fact that they lose that much money because they were trying to chase $30,000 is just hilarious to me. And like I said, that's if they win the case, because they could still lose this at the end of the year. And it's like, all right, what was that for? We lost our lawsuits and we spent all this money for nothing. And I really hope they lose, because I would like to have them, even though it doesn't really overall detract from the game, but I think just that attention to detail of being able to just throw your sphere and have your PAL pop out of, instead of just, you know, raising it and they appear. Additionally, I want them to bring back the gliding mechanic. So instead of just using your glider, actually being able to glide on certain PALs. I really liked the way that looked. So I wish I hope that they can win this lawsuit and, you know, just have those features brought back. And even if it's, you know, obviously won't be available at launch, but say a future update, hey, we're bringing back these old mechanics that we patched out before. Although I believe I've heard some people say that they've been able to mod back in the old mechanics. So I might look into that and see if, you know, I could just patch that in, because that would be cool to bring back one way or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely am glad that overall Nintendo is just taking a big loss. And I believe that some of these mechanics that they tried to, at least most, if not all of them, that they tried to file in the US were all blocked. So they had to try to just go back to their home turf and say, hey, can we win here at least? And at most, it's not looking good for them. And at best, they'll just come out with $30,000. And also the game that they were trying to shut down is still going to get released anyway. And it's coming out next month. So big L for Nintendo. You know, next time, just let them go with things. I mean, I also believe, I heard that the funny thing too is that Pocket Pair was working on a Switch 2 version of Palworld, which obviously isn't gonna happen at this point.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just funny that game could have been on there. Nintendo could have been getting whatever, you know, their 30% cut from the eShop store, and it's like, hey, you could have been making some money from this game, and call it no big deal. Like I said, the game ultimately only got as big as it did because of Nintendo, which, congratulations, you played yourself.
Right.
So yeah, that it's definitely fun. So I'll look forward to see what the end results are. Like I said, I hope that Nintendo walks away with nothing. But even if they don't, even if they do make some sort of small victory, it's really not going to be that big of a victory because they still did not ultimately get what they want.
Yeah. Indeed. All right. Going into our last topic for the night. So, it looks like Nintendo is doing $80 games physical again. And that is happening with Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I mean, it's the collector's edition, of course, is $120. Not really surprising. Collector's edition, that it'd be more expensive. Expect that. It comes with extra stuff. Probably worth it for people who really want that. But the fact that they're charging $80 for the physical version is, yeah. I think it's, if they're doing this for Fire Emblem, what is that going to mean for other actual like bigger games that are more popular series, like Zelda, like Ocarina of Time? Is that going to be an $80 game? And Xenoblade Genesis.
Oh, yep.
So, I have some other thoughts on this. Although I do actually want to point out real quickly, I did find out by pure happenstance, because I was looking up some games for last week. The first-party Nintendo games, which are, of course, more expensive for the physical versions, on Amazon are actually the same price as the digital version. Amazon is only charging 60, 70, you know, whatever the digital version costs, it's the same for the physical version. So for Fire Emblem, it's 70 instead of 80. Star Fox is 50 instead of 60. And I guess it's true with other games as well, like what you call it, that one co-op game that's exclusive to them. I can't remember the name of it, but it's $10 cheaper on Amazon than it is elsewhere. So there's that at least. But what are your thoughts?
This is definitely surprising to say the least. I mean, I know that Fire Emblem has been gaining popularity in more recent years, but I would not say it's one of Nintendo's major system seller titles. So the fact that they are charging $80 for this is incredible. That I really do not see why they would do this. And like you said, if they're charging $80 for this, what are they charging for other games? Like you said, that are more popular. Like, I feel like right now they're going to definitely have Ocarina of Time be $80.
Yeah.
But if they say, hey, we could try remaking something else, we'll wait a year or two. Could we try doing 90? I mean, I really feel like that's something that could happen because, I mean, granted,
well, I could see next year market conditions, $90 games.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I already feel like, sure, it only happened at the beginning of this generation with Sony and doing 70, but it feels like there's been such a short distance, a short amount of time from 70 to just jumping straight to 80. I mean, even though Sony tried to make all of their games across the board 70, they didn't they didn't dare try to do $80. Yet. And even with their current titles, their current big AAA titles, they're only still just doing 70. Nintendo's the only one that's been saying, hey, let's charge $80, guys. Let's do that. Because apparently they just know that their fans will eat this up and not question it at all. It's just, don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next product. That's essentially what it is, and they know that people will accept that, which is sad to say, but it really just shouldn't be this way. Now, as I said in the past, I will at least give Nintendo a little bit of credit for allowing the digital games to be cheaper. I will give them credit for that. But at the same time, $80 I think is more than a stretch, to say the least. I mean, the Fire Emblem games that I played, I enjoyed them. I would not spend $80 on them. No. I mean, I wouldn't even spend $70 on them. And if I'm gonna spend more than $60, it's only because I'm buying a special edition. That's the only reason why I'm spending more than $60 is for a special edition. So this is insane to me. I mean, I guess the only good thing I can say is, unlike with... Actually, no, that was the only game that did it. I was going to say, unlike with Fate, there's only one version of the game, so it's not like you have to buy multiple versions to get this full story. But still, it's just ridiculous. It's like, why are you doing this? But yeah, I definitely will say that Ocarina of Time is going to be $80. If they're going to make any, I mean, this is what, the third $80 game, because the first one was Mario Kart World. And was there another one? Oh, Yoshi was 70.
Yoshi's 70 physical.
Okay, Yoshi was 70 physically. So yeah, Mario Kart was the first one. That was 80. This is going to be the second one then. And I do think that maybe Xenoblade has gained more popularity than Fire Emblem, or at least currently might have. I don't know, but I definitely think Xenoblade Genesis could possibly be $80 physical on release.
Probably.
Which is just a shame to say, but I expect to see it that way. And yeah, and it's hopefully it's not the case, but it's definitely going to happen. And this is also just going to set a precedent to other game manufacturers who are going to say, hey, you know what, why are we selling ourselves short? If Nintendo can charge $80, why can't we? Now, granted, I think the only studio right now who is brave enough to do that is going to be Rockstar.
Yeah,
they're going to charge at least $80 for GTA 6. I believe they even have the nerve to charge maybe $90 for that game, because they know people are going to pay that price regardless. Especially, they're going to do it. So I will see. Hands down, if I were a betting man, I would say expect to see $80 for GTA 6, maybe $90. But as far as it stands right now, that is going to be the next studio that charges $80 for games. And then once that game is popular and sells millions of copies, then other studios are going to say, hey, you know what? We should be doing that too. And then that's going to start the next wave of $80 games as the new norm, and whatnot. And it's like, all right, great, guys. Hope you're happy. You spent $8 on Fire Emblem. Now everyone's charging $80. Are you happy now? And don't be upset and say, "Oh, why is it so expensive?" You started this. You contributed to this problem.
Yep.
But yeah, that's everything that I have to say on this.
I definitely would not spend $80. Even Xenoblade, I will not spend $80 on. And like Fire Emblem, it interests me. I like the Fire Emblem games I played, but I also have several in my backlog, so I'm not really that interested in buying this one currently, especially because, like, as it stands right now, just looking at the ones I have already. On 3DS, I have Fates. I have all the parts of Fates. Plus, I have, what's the other one called? Fire Emblem Echoes. That's right. I think it's Echoes, yeah. So I have that too. And then on the Switch, I don't own any of the games on there, but there's still 3 houses, and then I can't remember what the second one was that they brought out. But yeah, so like I wouldn't be in any rush to get this one anyway. If I was going to do it, I would definitely be buying it through Amazon because saving the $10 is great. Don't know if the discount that they're doing is just a pre-order discount because they're trying to not lose out on those physical sales. Or if it's that this is like a permanent price discount. I would hope that it's the latter, but I also know that these games fluctuate in price over time, and they really don't start going up again until after the system no longer is available, or if the copies sell out, which happens occasionally, but for a brand new game, that's pretty uncommon. So with that all being said, I'm not surprised to see Nintendo pushing this, because Fire Emblem fans are hardcore for the series, and Nintendo is frankly just taking advantage of them. I mean, they know that they can get away with it, and so they will do that. But like you said, if people accept these prices, it's going to become the standard. And I guarantee you, next generation, $80 is going to be the standard for the PlayStation 6 and the series, whatever the next Xbox console is. For Project Helix, $80 is going to be the standard. Now, I would think probably, honestly, I could almost see Xbox being the one to say, we're not going to do that because we tried that already and it didn't go over, and so we ended up having to back off. But PlayStation, I think, is absolutely going to do it. And Nintendo, I think that they're testing the waters with these ones, and then they're going to do $80 for other games as well. I think Ocarina of Time is probably going to be $80. And unfortunately, that one's going to sell well, regardless. The crazy thing about this, like the Canadian rate, because their dollar is worth less than ours, $110 for in Canadian dollars for that same game. So it's, roughly the equivalent, but yeah, over $100 for a game. And this is where we're at. This is why I prefer PC gaming. And I won't spend $70 on a game in general, let alone $80. There are exceedingly rare occasions where I might be willing to spend something like that, but usually if I'm spending that much, it's for like a deluxe edition of a game. And that's just one that like I really want to give my full support to this game because of how strongly I feel about it. But in general, like if I have the option of getting it at a discount, I'm always going to get it at a discount at launch. Even if that means, hey, I can't do a refund on it, but if I really want this game, I don't mind because I'm getting my money's worth. I know it's a game that I'm going to play and that I'm looking forward to playing and fully enjoying. So, but yeah, I hope that more people than not will go against this, but I also have seen enough with Nintendo fanboys in particular. And once again, not every Nintendo fan, but fanboys in particular are going to defend this, and they're just going to accept it. And even if they don't, they might complain about it a little bit, but then still go and buy it. And I think that that's probably what we're going to have more than not. And I'm really not meaning to like dog on Nintendo fans or fanboys in this situation. But the reality is you have to understand that if you accept these prices, it's going to be the norm. And every time you accept these price increases, they're going to make it the standard going forward. They're going to keep pushing that envelope, and they're going to get however much money they can out of you. So that's it. That's what I got. All right. Well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right. So my recommendation is going to be, if you are going to try out testing or have any type of major testing of your PC components, I recommend doing them in a separate build if possible from your main PC. So that way, if something goes wrong, you are not out of a PC for as long as you're out of as long as you're having difficulties. That's definitely something that I should have done, and I shouldn't have been lazy and tried to just do everything all in one go. So yeah, if you have the spare parts to build a small test build PC, just go ahead and do that. So that way, if anything does show up, if you have any problems, that's completely separate and it won't impact your day-to-day use. So definitely do that.
Agreed. All right. Well, my recommendation, first of all, is that if you are wanting to get any new Switch games, any of them at all, well, I should say the majority of them, go through Amazon, because you can usually get the game for cheaper than it is buying it elsewhere for the physical copy. So that's my first recommendation. Second recommendation, on the level in Chapter 3 of Final Fantasy Type 0, where you have to go to the factory to destroy some prototypes. If you are playing on PC and you are using that 60 FPS mod, or the increased FPS mod, change your frame rate in that back to a 30 FPS cap so that the game doesn't freeze up on you. And then once you get to the first save point, then you can change it back to 60 or what have you, and just enjoy it from there as normal. Yes, those are my recommendations. Dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be, do not, or rather, if you do not like the price of something, primarily this same toward games, do not buy the game. Even if you really want the game, wait for a sale. Do not get it right away, because if you buy something and you definitely know that you are being ripped off for what you're getting, do not support the practice, because otherwise you're just going to perpetuate the idea that this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why we have a lot of stuff like all the extra microtransactions and all of the the $70 price tag, is because people said, hey, this is completely fine. It's more than we paid before, but it's fine. People say, oh, but inflation, what's that got to do with you? Like,
Yeah.
You are trying to get a product. If a company wants to make sure that they are going to make a return on what they're selling, then they need to make sure that they're budgeting things properly. They need to make sure they're not trying to just buy or hire big Hollywood actors for every character in their game, inflating the budget furthermore. And maybe they just don't need to make the game be as pretty as it could be. Maybe if they just tone things down a bit, and maybe even just have things a bit more stylized. And hey, you know, it doesn't need to be ultra realistic. If they do that, then the games probably will be better, and you can still have a more reasonably priced game. So if you think that a game shouldn't be $70, don't spend that same dollars. Don't spend that $80, because you will just say, hey, this is fine, and I would like to see more of this in the future. I love to see more $80 games. That's essentially what you're saying if you spend that $80, $70. So definitely vote with your wallet. Do not condone these practices if you think that they're bad. If you think another company shouldn't be charging $80 for a game, do not support it for this one particular game.
Agreed. And my dissuasion is just along a similar line, and that's don't spend $80 on a Nintendo Switch 2 game. Get it elsewhere for cheaper. Go through Amazon, particularly if you want that physical, go through Amazon. Find some way to get it cheaper, because it's a bad precedent to be paying $80 for a game. And if you do it, you're gonna regret it. It's gonna ultimately have negative effects on everyone. So, even though I think it's ultimately inevitable because there's not enough people who are willing to say no, but if we can delay it, that would be good. And if more people would just say no, then we would have less of this stuff happening to everybody.
Yep.
All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, that's IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content. I might, now that I have things up and running again, I might just go back right now and restart my ABC series for gaming. So I'm pretty sure I nailed my new A title game.
Okay.
So just gotta go ahead and start doing that. But then I'll on that. I might go back to the PC testing stuff, but that's gonna be just on a back burner for right now until I decide I want to be bothered with getting back into that. So that'll be on postponed for the time being. But yeah, definitely the ABC. That's something that I will be trying to get out as soon as possible. But then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there. I believe I still have something that I want to discuss, so I just have to go ahead and get everything straightened on that end. But I will have a full announcement once I have more concrete information. But that is everything.
Good stuff. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. Nothing new's been put up in a little bit, but I am working on that next video that's going to be going up, which I promised a while back, but it just hadn't happened yet, and that is my video talking about the downsides of PC gaming. So hopefully I'll be getting to editing that soon, and then I can actually get it up in a reasonable amount of time, and eventually I'll be doing that QRD controller review as well, which one thing, just a side thing with that I forgot to mention. So I had tried using the Steam controller on Destiny 2 when I was just playing on my laptop, like more just because I wanted to test it out, but the gyro was giving me issues, like it was just causing me to look down the whole time. So after fiddling with it a little bit, I was like, this isn't really worth the effort. I just pull out the QRD controller because I'm not using it for anything else anymore. So it's like, hey, this is perfect. Just, play with basically an Xbox controller with back buttons. So that worked out nicely. But yeah. Oh yes. Then there are both the YouTube and Rumble channels for the podcast. The video version of the podcast goes live on both channels. Orangebox Podcast is at the Orangebox Podcast on YouTube. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find us there. The video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. The audio-only version goes live on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. and that goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, barring technical issues. If you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on the video version of the podcast on either YouTube or Rumble, and we'll be sure to read your comment on the show. And we have a question of the week for you guys this week, and that is, what is the maximum you are willing to spend on a standard edition of a game? And do you look out for deals when you go for pre-ordering a game, or do you just wait for a sale? So, yes, what is the maximum you're willing to spend on the standard edition of a game? That's the question for this week. And that should be everything. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I Am Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, don't spend $80 on a game, or Nintendo will kick you in the pal spheres. Orange Box Podcast, out.